Okay, so today is 6.2, graphing polynomials in standard form. Okay, so we're going to be talking about graphs of polynomials today. And so we're going to first talk about some key parts of graphs. So graphs of polynomials have the following. So we have what's called relative maximum. And so that's when anytime the graph hits like the top, right? So for example, if the graph looks like this would be a relative maximum, okay? We also have the opposite, which is a relative minimum, right? So that's anytime the graph hits a hump on the bottom, like a U shape, right? And then in addition, we have what's called the absolute maximum. And so this is the highest maximum. So you can have multiple relative maximums, but you only have one absolute maximum. And so that's the highest max. And then we have the absolute minimum, and that's the lowest min. Okay. So we're going to now actually define these in a graph. So let's say, for example, draw this in your notebook. Let's say we have a graph, coordinate plane, and make your graph look like this. Try to draw it similar to me, okay? So what we're going to first talk about is let's first find relative minimums. So one of the relative minimums, we have two minimums, here and here. So both of these are what we call relative minimums, right? These are both relative minimums. But the one on the right is lower. So this also is what we call the absolute minimum because it's the lowest one. We have one maximum. Let me change the color. Here, right here, we have our maximum. So this is not only a relative max, but it's also an absolute max because there's only one. In addition, we should know this by now, but we can also show where our zeros are at. There's a 0 here and there's a 0 here. These are anytime the graph crosses the x-axis. So zeros, zeros. And then the last thing we want to talk about is when the graph is increasing or decreasing. So the way that you want to do that is you want to go from left to right, okay? And if I were you, I would get the highlighter. So I'm going to use two highlighter colors. I'll use purple when it's decreasing, and I'll use green for when it's increasing. So starting at the left hand, it's first going down. So it's first decreasing. So I'm going to shade it purple, 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 purple. And then we hit one of the mins or maxes, right? We hit a min, which means now it starts going up. And then I hit another max or min, which means it's going to change directions, and now it's going down. And then lastly, I hit another min or max, and now it's going up again. It's going all the way up, right? And so if you want to quickly just write these in, this is when it's decreasing. It's increasing here. But you can now see we actually know a lot about this graph. We know when it's decreasing, we know when it's increasing, we know the mins, the relative maxes, the absolute mins, and we know the zeros, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a model problem where we're actually going to sketch a graph. So you don't need to have this written in your notebook, but there are cutouts if you want to staple or glue this into your notebook because I know some of y'all like to have like the problem at hand. So this problem says, sketch a third-degree polynomial with a 0 at -3. It has a relative minimum at 0, 3, and a maximum at -1, 5. And then highlight when it's increasing and highlight when it's decreasing. So I'm going to write down the key info. because that's a lot of information. So we know it's a third degree, right? From the last lesson, you should know third degree kind of looks like this weird like sideways S or this N shape, right? We know that it has a min at 0, 3, right? So minimums are when it's a U shape, and we know it's a max at -1, 5. So that's like the upside down U. And then we also know there's a 0 at -3, okay? So we're just going to sketch this. So I'm going to draw my coordinate plane. I'm going to start by making my min. So I'm going to decide that 0, 3 is right here. So this is 0, 3, and I'm going to make my min, okay? I'm going to now put my max. So max is -1, 5. So I know that it's going to be up above the 3, right? The whole point, like this is not going to be perfect. You're just sketching, right? So it just needs to be generally right? It wouldn't make sense to put like -1, 5 over here because that's not where -1 would be. So since this is a maximum, we're going to make it like an upside down U. And then I also know that there's a 0 at -3. So I'm going to make -3 over here. Okay? So that means it's crossing the x-axis at that point. So now I can make my graph. I'm going to change the color. So the graph seems to go something like this, right? Which makes sense because it is kind of this like S-shaped thing. And now we just are going to highlight when it's increasing and highlight when it's decreasing. So again, starting from the left, I'm going to make same colors as before. I'm going to make this one decreasing and the green increasing. So starting at the left, it's increasing, right, until I hit the max, and then it's decreasing, and then it's increasing again. Okay, so for this practice, you guys actually have to go get the worksheet. So there's a worksheet in the folder because it's just hard to do this on Delta Math. So work on the practice, and then you're going to come watch another video, and then the practice will be on Delta Math. So go get the worksheet from the folder.